So now transitioning to the Midwest, a big game in the first round: St. Louis versus Georgia. Georgia was the 8 seed. However, St. Louis came in with the better record at 29-5. Georgia was only 22-11. Georgia had been in the much better division, but St. Louis gave them an absolute beating of 102-77. One other game that was pretty big was the upset: Tennessee versus Virginia. Tennessee came in 24-11, and Virginia came in 30-6 as the 3 seed. Tennessee was the 6 seed. Virginia averaged 28 three-point attempts per game. In this game, they attempted 35, but they only made 12. That was a big stat that I saw that pretty much made the difference in the game. Also, incredible efficiency from Tennessee, shooting 47% from the field and 42% from three. An interesting stat I found from Tennessee: when they shoot over 40% from the field and 30% from three, they're 19-4. And when they shoot less than that, in either stat or both, they're only 4-6. And those 4 wins came at the beginning of the season versus pretty crappy teams compared to them. Do we think this was a bad game from Virginia or a good game from Tennessee?
It was a bad game from Virginia. I mean, I saw Virginia play in the ACC title game, and they were competing with Duke, and they looked like one of the best teams in the entire country. And Tennessee has had their moments where they just haven't competed at all. Some games they look good, some games they look bad. Although they may have played one of their better games, I think Virginia just wasn't in their best form for this game.
Throughout the regular season, watching both teams, it was pretty much clear as day. Virginia was the far better team than Tennessee. What we saw on that day was not the same as what we saw during the regular season, and that just shows anything can happen in the tournament in one game.
Another pretty close game that was very exciting to watch was Kentucky versus Santa Clara. Historic game from Otega Owe. Hit the buzzer beater from half court to tie the game at the end, and he also scored 35 points that game. However, they did lose in the next round. So my question for you guys is, do people remember this game in 5 years?
I think maybe for the end of the game. I mean, the end of the game was unbelievable. Santa Clara taking the lead in the final seconds, and then Kentucky coming down the other end, tying the game and sending it to overtime. It's definitely, you'll see Otega always shot for years to come. But, I feel like it will be a game we remember just because of that one shot specifically.
Just given that it's Kentucky, had it been a smaller school, sometimes those shots get remembered more. You think of Northern Iowa from a few years ago. And really just those shots where it's the Cinderella team upsetting, I feel like it's talked about more, but that was just an amazing sequence at the end of the game. And I do hope it gets talked about in years to come because it was amazing.
Speaking of Tennessee, we have another Tennessee game, Tennessee versus Michigan in the Elite Eight. Michigan came in as the better team. Everybody basically knew they were going to win this game, and they showed it. They won by 33 points. It was a close game until 10-16 left in the first, where Michigan went on a 20-0 run, and they never looked back from there. Again, the stat comes up. Tennessee only shot this game 32% from the field and only 19% from the three. Michigan was the aggressor, and it looked like it. They kept driving into the lane, getting to the free throw line, 37 attempts compared to Tennessee's 17. Tennessee only had 2 people in double figures. One of them was Jacoby Gillespie, who had 21. He was shot-chucking, though. He was not efficient. He shot 8 for 22 from the field. And compared to Michigan, who had 5 players in double digits, including Yaxel Lendenberg, who had 27. Do we think that this game is showing how good Michigan is, or was it just a game that they should have won anyways?
I don't know if this specifically shows how good Michigan is. There's been a lot of games that Michigan has looked really good in this tournament. But I guess this one being one of them. Tennessee plays in the SEC. That's one of the hardest conferences in all of the country, if not the hardest. It's debatable. But, like Declan said, Yaxel Lendenberg, he's looked unbelievable. He's really stepped up during this tournament, same with Elliot Cadeau. And I really think Michigan is the best team remaining on paper.
With the Michigan-Tennessee matchup, it just seemed like that was Tennessee's ceiling. They weren't going to go past the Elite Eight. That was almost Michigan's floor. Like, at minimum, they were going to the Elite Eight. It will be a great matchup between them and Arizona, who have just gone through the tournament with ease. They've won all their games by pretty much double digits, and they really haven't faced a real scare yet. So that's probably going to be the game of the tournament. Sometimes that works out that way, where the semifinal game, you might see the best 2 teams. And pretty much whoever comes out of that game, you've got to love their shot to win it all this year.
Speaking about Michigan specifically, they look like the 1 or the 2 in terms of best teams in the country. In their 4 games prior, they scored an average of 95 points. they have taken care of teams that are worse than them, like Howard, Tennessee, basically all the teams that they've played so far. Arizona is miles better than the best teams that they have played, though. For example, Tennessee or Alabama. Michigan has a 35-3 record. They scored 86.8 points per game in their NCAA play in the regular season. They have 4 people on the team that average double digits. Their leading scorer, like I mentioned, Yaxel Lenneberg, during the regular season, he averaged 15.2 points. In the tournament, he's averaged 21 points, but he stepped up specifically in the last 3 games. The first game, he only scored 9 points versus Howard. It didn't really matter, though, because they're a 16th seed. However, I do have one question about Michigan. They've played a fairly easy schedule throughout the tournament. How do you guys think that factors into how they play against Arizona?
Well, I don't think the Big Ten is necessarily as good as the Big 12 was this year, and the conferences, they change every year now with the way NIL works and the way guys are transferring out after one season. So, in my opinion, the Big 12 was the best conference in the entire country this year, and I think that's really going to help Arizona in this game against Michigan. I think if the game's close late, that's really going to help them because they've been there and they've done that, and they've won close games. I think Arizona only has, 2 losses on the entire season, and they came in the same week, and they were both tremendous games. I'm not too worried about Arizona. I think they have played the schedule and they have played in enough close games to be ready for Michigan.
And when it comes to the tournament time, you can't control who's in front of you. You can't control who wins the next game. We saw that UConn won it all in 2023. They played a 5 seed in the semifinal. They played a 5 seed in the national title game. But if you're just taking care of business with the opponent you get and you're showing that, really you just handle business really well and that no matter who your opponent would have been, they were winning by ease. Michigan kind of reminds me of that 23 UConn team where, despite not playing, the top seed, they didn't get a 2 or 3 seed in the Elite Eight. They got a 6. They showed no doubt that they were the better team. They were going to handle the game. All right, so on to the West region. The big matchup in the first round of the West region was the High Point win over Wisconsin. It was an 83-82 win. And honestly, Wisconsin played pretty well, led by John Blackwell and Nick Boyd. They both had good games. John Blackwell had 22 points. Nick Boyd had 27 points. It was kind of Blackwell's first half. He was reigning in shots. Then the keys to the game turned over to Nick Boyd. In the second half, he was breaking down all of his defenders. He was getting to the rim. He was pretty much getting anything he wanted. And Wisconsin truly did everything they could, but High Point just outplayed them. It's good to see a mid-major kind of hanging with a power conference team. And there's been this conversation of, is the Cinderella dead? Are we going to continue to seeing these mid-majors being able to beat power conference teams? High Point showed that it's possible. So I just want to know our thoughts on, do we think like in future years we'll continue to see mid-majors like High Point beat power conference teams like Wisconsin?
Well, I think there's a big problem with the scheduling in college basketball. A team like High Point, they struggle to get these high major teams on their schedule because they are a mid-major. And we saw in the tournament game, they hung with Wisconsin the whole way. Wisconsin's a team that has arguably one of the best resumes in the entire country coming into that game. But High Point is a great team. They won. They were winning. They were hot, and they proved that they could hang with that high major team. And in my opinion, like High Point coach made a great point after the game saying that these mid-major teams, they need to have the ability to get these high major teams on their schedule throughout the entire year, not just at the beginning of the year, because they have a chance and they're as good as these high major teams and they want to be able to prove themselves.
I mean, I think there's always a chance. Like, that's why they call it March Madness. There's always a chance, and every team that gets in has the opportunity to beat any team on a given day. Although I do think it's a problem how much money is circulating in NIL. Like, these mid-major teams don't even have an opportunity to get some of the best players in the country because they don't have enough money to spend. All these players are getting $2, $3, even $5 million to play at these schools. Not to mention their commercial benefits that they get from playing at these big-time name schools. I just don't think that there's any way that these teams will be able to compete in the future.
There's the thing with that too. Even High Points players that might return next season, they're gonna get offers from high major schools to go make more money playing there. So it's really hard for mid majors like High Point to return their roster and find sustained success. Other storylines in that region: Texas went from the first 4 game all the way to the Sweet 16, the 6th team to do so. That they caused AJ Debince's final college game, 35 points and 10 rebounds. He had a really good college career. BYU was really playing well at the beginning of the season. I think they were 16-1, 17-1. And then obviously with the injury to Richie Saunders, they kind of fell off a cliff there. But from there to round out the region, it was pretty much Arizona dominance. Kind of same thing with Michigan. They won all their games by double digits. And they really go like 8, 9 quality, players deep in the rotation. They have tons of depth. I could see 5 or 6 of these guys making careers for themselves in the NBA. So I really think they're a force to be reckoned with in the Final Four. We've talked about Arizona, Michigan, who will come out on top. I think it's a good time to kind of transition to that. Is Arizona the title favorite? Is it Michigan? What do we think?
I mean, I think that's going to be the best game we've seen all year. Maybe not even maybe this decade. I mean, both teams match up so well with each other, and the amount of talent that's going to be on the floor. Jaden Bradley, Elliot Cadeau, Del Rosso. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yaxel Lindenberg. It just does really go on and on. And I think that when you really like break down both teams' points per game and how much they give up against each other, it's right there. It's the same, and I think that this could potentially be, like I said, the game of the year. But with the way Arizona's schedule has been, like Will said, Michigan reminds him a lot of UConn a few years ago. But I think not playing the toughest teams in the country coming into this game, and also Arizona just having played the best schedule arguably in the entire country, I think Arizona will prevail.
I mean, I spent hours trying to find any stat that I could that separated the two teams, and I just couldn't. They're just right there. They're basically the same team. But I do think that Arizona's guards will be able to shut down Michigan's guards. I think they're a slight bit better defensively, and I think that Yaxel Lindenberg has been carrying Michigan a little bit, and he scored the majority of the points. Like I said, he had 27 against Tennessee. I think that that's something that will help Arizona. Their defense is going to come down to. And if, for Michigan, if Yaxel Lindenberg is able to score at all, and if he's not, what are they going to do? But, well, it'll be fun to see.
I think this is also a big game for Arizona's Koa Pete. I think he's been a little quiet of late. He started the year hot and was one of the best players in the entire country. And then we saw Jaden Bradley kind of step onto the scene, and he was that Big 12 player of the year. But I think this is going to be a huge game for Koa Pete down low. And, it's going to be tough with guys like Lindenborg and Mara down low. But I think Arizona will get the job done.
What I will say about Arizona is they do a majority of their scoring inside. Even the good guards that we talk about, Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries, they don't really shoot a ton of threes. They like to get to their mid-range pull-up jump shots. So really scoring a lot of points in the paint. In Michigan, like even Yaxel Lindenborg, he's been playing the threes. He's a big, small forward, but he does a good amount of scoring from outside. So if Michigan is hitting their three-point shots, sometimes if Arizona falls behind, it can be tough to come back from a deficit, if you're only scoring 2 points down every possession.
Yeah, and I think we saw a lot in that Iowa State-Arizona game in the Big 12 tournament when we saw Momvilovic hit a few threes for Iowa State, and it kind of like, I don't want to say it got to Arizona, but, it's tough when guys are coming down the other end. You're only scoring 2-pointers, and the other team is coming down hitting threes consistently. So if Michigan can hit the three, guys like Lendenborg's going to have to hit the three, Cadeau's going to have to hit the three. The whole team is going to have to able to shoot, and if they do that, Michigan will win, but I think Arizona still will prevail.
Yeah, I mean, the two-pointer is just so much more successful on average than the three-pointer. And I think so much has to go right for Michigan in that sense for them to be able to even have a chance in this game. If they're not hitting their threes, they're probably going to lose by double digits. But if they are hitting their threes, it gives them a very good chance, I think. So our next game, UConn versus Illinois. I think we all have UConn over Illinois. UConn has a ton of momentum after the Braden Mullins shot versus Duke, and they're facing a team that hasn't had a lot of tough competition. They've only faced one top 5 team, which was Houston, and they won by 10 points. And that's it, basically. What do we think is the most important thing that UConn has to do to win this game, though?
Well, for UConn, they're going to have to shoot, and I said that in the last game, and they won. They beat Duke without having to shoot, but Illinois is playing some of the best basketball they've played all year, and they're playing as a team right now. I think UConn really has to play together. The chemistry has to be there because, Illinois is playing the best basketball they've played all year, and the whole team is contributing. Their chemistry looks off the charts. Again, they're the tallest team in the entire country, so it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, just to reiterate some of the points you said, the difference between Duke and Illinois is that Duke was playing its best basketball in the regular season. Illinois has peaked now in the postseason. In Illinois, they operate 1 through 8, all 8 rotation players. For Duke, if Cameron Boozer's not going, Duke's not really going. UConn, really, it's the outside shots that are killing them. You think about how unstoppable this team would be. Reed scoring every time down the floor in the post. Maybe you think the momentum would carry over. Mullins shoots with more confidence in the next game. Caravan shot to fall. I don't think I've seen solo ball Braylon Mullins or Alex Caravan shot falling all on the same day. It's like one of them has a good game and the other two are off. If they could get all three playing and clicking at the right time, Silas Demery back to being somewhere near fully healthy, maybe 80-85%, I really do think UConn can, really handle Illinois pretty easily.
I mean, I think it's really going to matter, too, how Illinois guards Terrace Reed. If they can come up with a game plan to stop him, it gives them a pretty good chance because he's been just dominating down low, absolutely getting whatever he wants every game. So if they can stop that and rely more on what Solo Ball can do, what Alex Caravan can do, and see how that takes the game, they might have a better chance.
I think Illinois can really give UConn a run for their money, though. Wagler's been unbelievable, and I said earlier about how he's looked Walter Clayton-esque. If he can come into that true form and be that clutch player, they will have a true shot. David Mirkovic and Andrei Stojakovic, they've been huge down low, and they could give Terrence Reed a big problem. Same with Tomislav Ivicic. I mean, Illinois is playing as a team right now, and they are playing the best they've played all year. So this will not be easy for UConn, and like you said with Terrence Reed, if Reed has a good game, UConn could definitely win by double digits. But like we keep saying, Illinois is the tallest team in the entire country.
Yeah, I think X factor has to be the bench production for Illinois. UConn doesn't get a ton of production off their bench. Malachi Smith comes off the bench as the backup point guard, and maybe he'll put up a 2.5 assist stat line, but that's really all they get from off their bench. Stojakovic for Illinois, he comes off the bench and really gives them 15, 20 points. He's probably their second scorer behind Keaton Wagler. So if he can have a good game off the bench, sometimes it throws off the matchups. UConn's second unit doesn't match up well against Illinois. And then, I would assume Illinois would, if I'm playing UConn at this point, I would put all the attention on Terrace Reed. I would send a double on Terrace Reed. I would force UConn to hit shots from outside. If you told me that before the season, I wouldn't believe you. That's how the game plan for UConn would be. So if UConn can take advantage of that and they can hit their shots from outside, I think that's what would give them the edge over Illinois.
And then for the national title game, we have Arizona versus UConn. What are you guys thinking for that potential matchup?
I mean, I'm thinking Arizona. They've just looked unstoppable this tournament, and I think they're destined, either them or Michigan, to win this thing and take it home. I mean, they've just scored so many points, and their defense has really been there. They've been all around two of the best teams in the entire country. That's why they're both the 1 seeds, and that's why they're going to get into this game.
UConn and Arizona matched up early in the year. Arizona came to UConn for the first game of a home-and-home series, and Arizona won by 4. Now, UConn did not have Braylon Mullins or Terrace Reed in that game. However, since then, those teams, Arizona has skyrocketed, and UConn, they kind of just stayed steady. They kind of declined a bit. It kind of feels remarkable that UConn's even made it to the Final Four this year. It feels like a down year for the program. And Arizona, this is the best year they've had in years. This is Arizona's team of destiny. Like the past UConn teams, those are the teams that are going to win the national championship. If Arizona doesn't win it this year, one year they're going to get it. I think Arizona, this is their year.
This is an Arizona team that is a quarter century built in the making. I mean, this team has been built and built. They've had some tough losses over the last few years in the tournament, but I really think that this is their year. This is their team. A team in the West has not won a national title in like 30 years, and I think this is the year where we see that come to a close. Thank you guys for coming to our second episode of the Morgan Podcast. We really appreciate it. I'm Jack Henry, this is Declan, and this is Will signing off.